So, welcome to Tuesdays in the Boardroom. We're going to be mapping transitions that engage your talents, purpose, and allies. And this week, we're going to be talking about how do we activate allies. We have people that are allies or ones that we need to identify as allies. But once you've identified them, how do you get them activated? How do you get them engaged such that they're keeping you front of mind, or your project front of mind, in the midst of all of the chaos that we know is always out there? So we had this quote last week, but I want to kind of really remind us that creativity has been said consists largely of rearranging what we know in order to find out what we do not know. Hence, to think creatively, we must be able to look afresh at what we normally take for granted. So a lot of times, cousins, sisters, neighbors, doctors, people that we normally see as these roles, we don't necessarily think creatively about how they may actually be good allies. So being able to be creative in this process and be careful of what things we already know. We've already said this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this person does this, isn't going to be interested, this person doesn't have enough time, this person's not old enough, this person's too old. Whatever like filter we've put, it's important for us to step back and be creative. In Leslie's prayer just now, she talked about being a vessel for God and about really being able to go out and be servants and bring peace to others. When we're looking for a job, when we're looking in career, or we're in any kind of transition, it's sometimes hard to think about how we can be of service to others, which really does fill us up. And then we're not just a one-way street, it's a two-way street. So Benjamin Franklin had simple two questions. It's a routine. We've talked over and over again about making this transition have some routines to it. He had two questions for starting and ending his day. So at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And he contributes most of success to just having these two questions. So ask yourself first thing in the morning, what good shall I do this day? And then in the evening, say, what good have I done this day? These are very good. The brain works powerfully with questions, and posing that question in the morning, leaving yourself open and curious and creative. And then at the end of the day, searching through what happened and picking out what good you've done this day. And sometimes the good you're doing is for someone else, and sometimes the good is for yourself, and that counts on the list. Last week, Shonda was great about finding this quote, because Winston Churchill, he said, there's at least one thing worse than fighting without allies, and that is to fight without them. So fighting with allies, the other is fighting without them. So basically, we tend to go at this very much by ourselves, and we just get tired. So being able to find people that can walk with us and be an ally, and they may have different roles in being allies. So once again, we're in this position where we're teaching you many things. Y'all are teaching us many things. We had a dialogue a few minutes ago where new resources were being brought into the room for the group, which is fabulous. But really, the way that you can learn how to walk in the wilderness is actually walking in the wilderness. You can't just read a handbook and have it and do it. You've got to be in the wilderness and try things and fail and try things and succeed. So know that to learn how to do what we're going to be doing as far as activating allies is by actually experiencing it. You won't know how to activate an ally until you've identified them as an ally, and then start leaning on them as an ally and having them lean on you. You've seen this slide a million times, but these are just reminders that allies, you need to be thinking about who can help because of specific reasons. Like your big sister may be really good at telling jokes, so she'll be your ally in keeping up your spirits. And you could tell her, you know what you can do for me during my job search? Would you please just once a day or once a week, can I call you and you just tell me a joke? That's how she's being an ally. But interestingly, she may have a neighbor who has the job that you're looking for. But right now, she knows her role is to be the comedian. Your colleagues are people that you've worked with. They know your work. They know what kind of reputation you have had. There may be some awkwardness, but once you've identified them as an ally, there's a strategy to approach. How do you talk to them and have them be part of your team that you can rely on? Mentors are the same. People that have been perhaps bosses that you think, oh gosh, I can't go back to an old boss. You can go back to an old boss, an old mentor. They will be delighted to know that that's somebody that you see that way. So do something that your future self will thank you for, and that is, once again, put a box around 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. That is the time traditionally your allies have thought about being at work. So if you're going to talk with them about work and the research you're doing right now during your job search, these are the hours. So these are the ones you need to map out to call and talk with them. So Shonda, I'm just curious if you have a couple of words you can say about time blocking and how essential that is for setting up some of these conversations.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's each of us, it's not one size fits all. So, for each of us to tune in to what we bring to the table, when is our energy the highest? When do we feel our, yeah, most bold and encouraged to try new things? Being aware of what that time frame is really important. It's not for everybody first thing in the morning. It's not for everybody midday. Each one of us needs to identify what is your hour of power, if you will. Give yourself one full hour where you say, this is when my energy is at its highest level, and that's when I can take on the world. This is when I feel most, yeah, encouraged to try new things, encouraged to do the things that might scare me at another time or might make me feel a little bit uncertain at another time. So really being conscious of who you are and what you need, and then making sure there's a reward with that timing, that you have your hour of challenge, your hour of power where you're doing new things that are more challenging for you, whether that is posting on LinkedIn, something that you have been regretting or saying, I should do that. I should really do that. I need to do that. Um, do that, right? And then make sure you have the next thing planned in your day is something that's good for you, that feeds your soul, that re-energizes you. And this could be, drinking a cup of hot cocoa. This could be taking a walk with your dog. This could be whatever it is that is going to fill your cup so that you can get back into action and tackle that next goal on your list so that you feel energized to do the next task. But really, I think it's so important that we make it fair for ourselves. The biggest challenge that people have is they overschedule and they say, I have 22 to dos, and they go to bed that night looking at that list, feeling like a failure. That does nothing for self esteem. That does nothing for your sense of self. You need to make a realistic list for that day based on you, based on your energy, based on those biorhythms that you've identified of when you feel at your best. And so, if you can be as brutally honest with yourself as possible when you make that list and say, nope, that's really not going to happen today. I can do that tomorrow. I will do that tomorrow. Make a deal with yourself that what you write down as your to dos really is going to get done. And then reward yourself, really. Like, say, I did it. I rock. This is excellent. There has to be a sense of a moment where you go, that wasn't easy and I got through it. And I assure you, I promise you that the next day you will feel even more energized as you go to tackle that next list, because it truly does. You have proof now. Look, I did it yesterday. I know I can do it today. You've proven it to yourself.
And also know that during this time frame that you've chosen and you're thinking about them, now that you've had your assessments, you understand how to read people. As you start thinking about allies and you say, start booking appointments with them or thinking about having a conversation with them via direct messenger or texting or email, think about if they're a DI personality or they're an SC personality. Then get curious when you're chatting with them and say, look, I'd like to book a conversation with you next week sometime. Are you better in the morning? Are you better in the evening? What's the best time of day? So being aware of them just as much as you, because you're setting up a dialogue, and being able to read them is why we start with that workshop. Is reading other people allows you to meet them where they are. If they really are not good in the afternoon, this is not when you want to have the conversation with them. So putting on your list of questions for your allies is, is your energy good in the morning or in the afternoon? Find out if they like hot chocolate, like Shonda said, could be a great little have it delivered by Grubhub or something, their favorite whatever, for having had the conversation with you. So being able to figure out how can I serve them just as much as they serve me. If you're going on to LinkedIn, find an article, and you may not be a banker, but you find an article about banking, you send it to your friend and say, I thought you'd be interested in this. And don't even talk about your job search, but you're warming up that relationship with them by being of service to them as well. We've reminded you, we've just changed, in case you can't really tell with the PowerPoint, we've moved to who are your allies? And we've talked about a lot of different people, but when you're in a transition, looking at, do you have a CPA? If you don't have a CPA, we're getting ready to go into tax time, find one. So obviously you're talking to them about your taxes, but did you think that perhaps during your time of conversation with them, could you mention, hey, I'm interested in this thing, or, be able to talk with them. I know it's tax season. What's the best time of day for me to talk to you? They would probably fall out of their chair knowing you're being considerate of what time would be best for them. Your insurance guy who's been calling you like crazy and you don't have money for more insurance because you don't have a job. But insurance people know a lot of people. So maybe it's somebody that you can flip it a bit and say, look, I would like to talk to you. The timing is not right, but I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'll put you in my back pocket for when I have funding. And as I'm out networking, I might meet someone else who actually has, a job that they can invest in insurance at this time. I'd love to connect them with you. So you're being of service to them in their career. I'm going to say it again. Curiosity is the most powerful thing you own. Imagination is a force that can actually manifest reality. So if you can start using your imagination to think about, who am I going to have a conversation with over the next couple of weeks? Imagine having conversations with them. Go ahead and put time in your calendar. You may not be nailed the exact time that's best for them, but if you got a list of people that you're talking to and you can imagine having fun with them on the call, and that you're just talking about their career. All right, so there are different teams that you're going to be working with that you need to activate. Leading your family through transition. And I'm talking about extended family. I'm talking about your brother-in-law that you don't really like, but you may need to lead him because he's got your sister's ear, or your mother who's driving you crazy with the nagging. These are all people that if you can lead them, you don't have to survive them. You don't have to tolerate them. And the way you lead them is by being able to give them updates on what you're doing. You say, it's interesting. I've got this crazy coach who's telling me to do Zoom calls, and now I'm getting comfortable on Zoom. And you let her know, let's talk about your mother, let's just say, this is what I'm doing. In fact, I've talked to 15 people this week, or I've talked to one person this week, and it ended up moving into a whole different conversation. You can even talk, but them knowing that you're working on it keeps them from saying, what are you doing? Have you done this? So being able to lead them means being in front of the conversation and then planning out on your calendar when you're going to have conversations with your family members so you can help allay their concerns and you can tell them what's happening with the job search. Your community team, that means friends, families, tennis partners, church members. They all have connections, both personal and professional. Help them help you. Now, the issue is that this is touchy. So you're right. You're going to have to be a little political and correct, just really aware of how do you talk to your community connections. So again, we're going to encourage you to talk about, actually right now through Easter, I'm just doing research on jobs. I'd like to talk to you because I think XYZ, right? So making sure they don't think that you are just calling them to help them with the job search. You're calling for research purposes, right? And then being able to set up and do some research on them. Be curious, because these people you think you know, you may not know. You go back and you find out, oh my gosh, they follow the same person. We've talked about this. When you have your meeting with them, talk about these things, lead them to help you. And mostly all you're asking for is a connecting conversation. Would you please introduce me to Joe, who's on your list? If you'll just do an intro conversation, you don't even really know what I do anyway. So I don't want you to have to be uncomfortable. If you'll just introduce us, I will meet with them. So if all they're being asked to do is make an introduction, not pass a resume on, because as soon as you ask them to pass on a resume, that's that's a risk for them. So make sure it's just introductions. Now, as you warm along, and some people may insist that they help you with the resume, great, let them do it. Your professional team. Your professional team wants to help. Help them help you. You help them too. And what I mean by that is what we said earlier. Being able to go onto LinkedIn and be able to read things and pass things on is so easy now. Being able to tell them, hey, I saw this advertisement for this event that you might be interested in. Um, Chris was talking earlier about having gone to other resources. Being able to, within this group itself, pass resources along to each other, help each other in this group move forward. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. Dr. Seuss was a very wise author. So we've just completed activating allies. If you want more tips and tools about it, please reach out to us. Next week, we're going to be talking about once you've got your allies, and I definitely we've talked about identifying them. I want you to have actual map of them up on the wall so that you see them when you feel like you're alone with your computer. Want the names, if you want to even put pictures of their faces up there, it helps you feel like you're not so alone. You actually do have. You can put our faces up there. We're here with you. Leslie Watkins' face is with you. Put faces up there to know you've got a team that's out there. We're going to expand beyond this team because there's even more that you can look at to expand the numbers of contacts that you're making. Then we'll be doing interviewing skills, negotiating skills, and then we're going to have a reunion on April the 27th. Again, just know we're here to celebrate the paths. So I'm going to stop the share now, and we're going to talk, because that's the fun part, is actually being able to talk.